Hi everyone, welcome to Poonam's Kitchen. Today's video is about not just one food recipe. This is about my pre-preparation which helps me put together a large number of meals for my family. My wish has always been to be able to put a fresh home-cooked meal on the table each time. Now this can be a little challenging while juggling between work, workouts, kids' activities, social commitments, and fun and entertainment time. For me, a little planning and some pre-preparation goes a long way to fulfill my wish for a fresh home-cooked meal. In this video, I'm sharing about my long-term planning that not only eases out cooking for several months, but also save me a lot of time and money. This bunch of veggies that you see, tomatoes, onions, ginger, garlic, green chilies, now these are part of most Indian meals. I make pastes out of these ingredients, a different combination for each paste. Whenever I'm preparing any dish, I customize it using one or more of these pastes. Now for the sake of the video, I'm showing you all these pastes together here, but actually I do all these pastes on different weekends, depending on the availability of the ingredients and also their cost. And by spreading out the workload over several weekends, the whole thing doesn't get intimidating and doesn't get tiring either. I buy these things in bulk. That saves me a lot of money. This big bag of onions is an 8-pound bag, and I'm using almost 3/4 of the bag for preparing the paste. Tomatoes, again in bulk. There are so many things that you could do with tomatoes as part of pre-preparation. This is one thing that is always on my ingredient list. Whenever I find a good deal on tomatoes, I grab a box or two and save it for the future months. Here I am removing all the stickers and the stalks from the tomatoes, and I'll rinse these thoroughly. I'm preparing these for multiple ways of storing. I peeled the ginger and rinsed it with water. Now here I am chopping it into smaller pieces. At my home, ginger is the most commonly used ingredient. It goes in so many dishes, in paranthas, biryanis, and also in tea, most important. And since this has to go in tea as well, I want this not to have any other flavor. So this is the first thing that I make a paste of. Here I'm using a chopping blade of a food processor in which I'm going to make the ginger paste. You could do this in your mixer grinder as well. I'm transferring the ginger paste to a plate in which I'm going to freeze this. You may use any airtight container if you wish. I'll flatten the paste onto the plate and divide it into smaller squares, like this. I'll cover this with a cling wrap, a plastic wrap. Now if you do not have the plastic wrap, you could always store this in an airtight container. I'll label it with a permanent marker so that this doesn't get confused with ginger garlic paste later on. I'll freeze the ginger cubes on the plate for a few hours. Here I am removing the stalks from green chilies and sorting the good ones from the bruised ones. I usually soak these for a few minutes and change the water a couple of times. The bowl in which I had made the ginger paste, I'll give it a quick rinse. No need of washing, just a quick rinse. Whenever I have to store ginger, that is the first ingredient that I work on because I need that for tea. Here I'm putting a few green chilies aside for eating raw, and I'll make a paste with the rest of the green chilies. Whenever I'm making green chili paste, I wait for a few minutes before I uncover the bowl because there are very strong fumes of green chili that go into the nose. Here I've added a teaspoon of salt to the paste, scraping the green chili from the walls of the bowl, and then mix in the salt with a pulse. Scraping and pulsing a few times till I get a paste. Once done, I allow this bowl to rest so that the fumes settle down, and in the meantime, I'll peel the garlic. I had saved a few ginger pieces that I chopped earlier, and I'll pulse them with these garlic cloves. I usually do my grocery shopping Friday evening or a Saturday morning, and In most cases, I try to chop the ginger and peel the garlic a day ahead of when I'm making the pastes. That way the workload is divided. Now the way I made ginger paste cubes, I'll do the same, exactly same for the green chili paste, green chili cubes. Now this plate goes in the freezer for a few hours. And as I said earlier, you could use an airtight container instead of a cling wrap. Now I'll use the jar as is, no need of washing, no rinsing. Chili flavor goes pretty well with ginger and garlic. You see how I'm following a pattern, first ginger, then green chili, then ginger garlic. Green chili, at times I use just as is, the cube, in a ready to eat dish. So I don't want any raw flavors of garlic in that. So green chili before the ginger garlic. Here I'm adding a heaped teaspoon of salt to the paste and a tablespoon of oil, whatever oil you use for cooking. This will keep the ginger garlic paste from turning bluish green. At times, even without adding the oil, the ginger garlic paste does not change the color. And let me tell you, even if it changes the color, it is 100% safe to use. Here again, I'm dividing the paste into small cubes, easier to use later on. A plastic wrap goes on top of this plate to prevent ice formation, and I'll label this as ginger garlic. So there is no confusion. I don't want the ginger garlic paste going into my tea. Now this plate also goes in the freezer for a few hours. Here I have another batch of ginger garlic paste that I'll be using to make the tadka or the versatile masala. This masala can go into dry vegetables, lentils, beans, curries. Here I'm adding some oil to a non-stick pan. I just prefer a non-stick pan so that the masala doesn't stick to the pan, and also I get to use less oil for making the tadka. And while the ginger garlic paste is sauteing, I'll prepare the onions. Here I am peeling and chopping the onions into a little smaller pieces so that they can go in the food processor. I'm using the same bowl in which I had made the ginger garlic paste. I haven't rinsed it. I do not blend the onions to a paste. I leave them a little coarse, small pieces of onions. I had been tossing the ginger garlic while I was blending the onions. And here you see me transferring all the onions, all the chopped onions, to the ginger garlic paste. Mix in the onions thoroughly with the ginger garlic paste so that the whole masala is very consistent. And the onions now will saute along with the ginger garlic. Now since this is lots of onions, I'll move the pan to the larger burner of my gas stove. The onions would now take some time to saute, and in the meantime I'll prepare the tomatoes for the tadka. Now since the onions take some time to saute, you could always parallelly work in the kitchen doing other things. Now since I'm shooting for the video, I'm just focusing on this right now. But actually it is very easy to multitask when the tadka is getting ready. After rinsing the tomatoes, I had transferred them to a colander to get rid of any excess water. And here I am chopping those tomatoes to blend in the food processor. I'm using the same bowl in which I had blended the onion without rinsing it. The blended tomatoes also go in the tadka. The tomatoes have a lot of moisture and will now take some time in sauteing. I'll cover this with a splatter screen so that it doesn't splatter outside and spoil the gas stove. I save a few firm tomatoes for salads or any other dishes that might need a whole tomato. So these would go in the refrigerator, and the rest of the tomatoes I have again chopped and I am blending in the same bowl. I haven't washed the bowl ever since I did the green chilies. Here I am adding some oil in a separate pan. You can see in the backdrop the tadka is getting cooked, and here I am making tomato puree. The blended tomatoes go in the warm oil for sauteing. I'll saute this till it starts oozing out oil. I got so many pastes ready, and what is there for washing? A bowl of the food processor, another glass bowl, a knife, a cutting board, and a colander. I'll I'll show you one more thing that I do with tomatoes when I get them at a good price. For this, I'll use the backside of this cutting board and a fresh knife, and I'll also wash my hands. I'll be storing these tomatoes raw, so I do not want them to have any flavor of onion, ginger, garlic or any other thing. I'm chopping these tomatoes into quarters, 4 pieces for each tomato. Very big tomatoes can be chopped in 6 or 8 pieces. I'll transfer these chopped tomatoes onto a plate and cover with a cling wrap, and this would go in the freezer for a few hours. Now let's take a look at the tomato puree and the tadka that's cooking. I have been tossing both these pastes after every few minutes so that they do not burn. The tadka and the tomato puree are considered done when they start oozing out oil. And now I'll allow these to cool down completely, switching off the gas stove. Here I have the tadka that's cooled down, the tomato puree that's cool, and the tomatoes have already frozen in the meantime. I'm reusing the same freezer bag that I had used earlier for frozen tomatoes when I had frozen them last. So I'll put all these in the Ziploc bag. Whenever you're storing, it is important that either it's an airtight container or the Ziploc bags are freezer safe. I'll press out all the excess air in the bag and store this in the freezer. And I'll be now reusing the same plate and the same cling wrap. Just wiping it with a paper towel. All the pastes that I have shown till now, the ginger paste, ginger garlic, green chili, versatile masala, that is the tadka, and the tomato puree, I have individual videos for all these on my channel. You could check those out for more details. Here I have flattened the tomato puree. I prefer to mark these into cubes 4 times the number of the tomatoes that I have pureed, so that each cube is 1/4 of a tomato. Very easy calculation. I'll cover this with a cling wrap and store this in the freezer. Here I'm storing the tadka, that is the versatile masala. It has cooled down. I'm putting them in Ziplocs, and I have kept some tadka for the next few days. So that bowl will go in the refrigerator for the next few days, and the Ziploc bags, from which I have also removed the excess air, will go in the freezer, which I'll use as and when required. I got 3 packets of the masala, the versatile masala, and I have labeled them as well. I have flattened these Ziploc bags. These are freezer safe bags, and when I put them flat, I can stack them one over the other. I'll use this masala as is for dry veggies and dals. For beans and curries, I'll blend this masala. Here you see the frozen pastes. I have removed the plastic wrap from top of the plates. I'll separate the cubes for all the pastes and store them in respective Ziplocs that have already been labeled. You may use an airtight container if you wish. Here you see me storing banana slices. I had sliced a few bananas and set them to freeze, covered with a plastic wrap, in the freezer for a few hours. And I'll be using these banana slices for a couple of things. I'll talk more about storing fruits for a long time in part 2 of this video. Here I have reused the same bags that I used earlier for these pastes, and you see all the pastes bagged here. Bags are properly labeled to avoid any confusion. I'll share with you a few ways how I use these pastes in my everyday cooking. Here is boiled tur dal. To this I'll add some versatile masala, that is the tadka, and a dash of sambar powder. Mix it in gently. Boiling the dal didn't take much effort on my part. A gentle mix and a tempering of mustard seeds, and here I have a dish ready for my dinner. For curries and beans, I blend the versatile masala, the tadka, to give a good consistency to the curry. Here I am blending the masala for kofta curry, koftas that were already prepared. See how consistent the masala is. Here I am adding the blended masala to the hot oil with turmeric and added a few dry spices, salt, red pepper, dhania powder, sabzi masala, and tossed it with the masala. Added some water, and once the water boiled, I added the ready koftas. I'll be talking more about these koftas in the next part of the video, and see how thick the curry turns out to be. I made this kofta curry to pack in the lunch boxes for work, for my family. Making this in the rush hours of morning with such ease is a bliss. Here I'm making spinach and corn rice using leftover rice. To warm ghee, I added 2 cubes of ginger and 1 teaspoon of green chili paste from the frozen pack. Once these sauteed, I added chopped spinach leaves, some frozen corn, sauteed that and added the rice, the leftover rice, a dash of lemon, a few chopped walnuts, which is optional, and I have a new dish ready for lunch. With ready-to-use pastes, I got this wholesome meal done in around 10 to 12 minutes. Quick and easy, healthy meal. Combinations of the pastes that I have shared in the video can be used to make a variety of dishes. For makhani or shahi gravies, like that for malai kofta or shahi paneer, you could use tomato puree cubes and the tadka. For adraki or gingery dishes, you could add an extra cube of the ginger paste. For more of garlicky flavor, add an extra cube of ginger garlic paste. All the pastes that I have shared in this video, you could customize these as per your needs. You may want to make a paste of just tomatoes and ginger, or you may want green chilies in the tadka along with onion, tomatoes, ginger and garlic. It all depends on how you cook your meals. You may want to make a huge quantity of these pastes or lesser quantity. Lesser quantities could be stored in the refrigerator for 3 to 4 days. Doing all these pre-preparations for meals by making these pastes has made cooking very easy for me. The satisfaction of putting a home-cooked meal on the table each time is simply priceless. Whenever there are guests, there is no need to panic. It's very easy to put together a meal with all these pre-preparations done. And you get to be called the efficient host. And you just never know, now your partner might want to turn to cooking because all these preparations are already done. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked this video and found it useful, do hit the like button. And do share in the comment section with me how you like these tips. Which of these tips work for you and what changes would you want to make to suit your needs. And don't forget to subscribe to Poonam's Kitchen on YouTube. A click on my picture on the screen will take you to Poonam's Kitchen channel on YouTube. Thanks once again. I will see you very soon with more tips on meal pre-planning and more recipe videos. And bye.